Good morning, everyone. It is great to be here today and to see such a full, packed room on one of my favorite topics. My name is Jane Vincent. I am the Regional Administrator with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. I was appointed by President Barack Obama, and it is my great honor to serve you here in the Mid-Atlantic region. Today, we have come together to share in a common journey, the journey of ending veterans' homelessness. It's a journey that began in many ways for each of us. For me, it actually began right here with Newcastle County so many years ago. And I really have to do a shout out to Leslie Wright. Wave your hand, I saw you over there, who I think is the only person at Newcastle County Community Development and Housing who was with me when I worked for Newcastle County all those years ago. The journey for me also began when, after Newcastle County, I worked for the City of Wilmington and worked with Mayor Williams in another capacity all those years ago. In Newcastle County, we started working on the issue of homelessness, and where I never would have believed that I was working with my partners at HUD and at the City of Wilmington and here in the state of Delaware, but that the entire federal government was not at my back. But now, HUD is working with the entire federal government as part of Opening Doors, the federal strategic plan to end homelessness. This was put in place a few years ago by President Barack Obama, and there are 19 federal agencies working together on this, and we are working together with all of you and others around the country. This is the strategy to end veterans' homelessness by the end of this calendar year, to end homelessness in a chronic way by 2017, and to end homelessness among families and children, and to set the country on a path where we will have no more homelessness by the end of 2020. Really, that's what the journey is all about, hitting those three marks and those three goals. And although Governor Markell is not here today, we'd really like to thank him because just recently the state of Delaware and Governor Markell joined just a handful of governors around the country that have made this pledge and commitment. And I can tell you that Mayor Williams and Mayor Searer were one of the first in the region to sign on, County Executive Gordon as well. And they signed on without hesitation. And so what you all are doing today is coming together to figure out a way to get to zero.
I want to say to each and every one of you, this is heartfelt that we are committed and concerned about our veterans. And let me say this, the freedoms that we enjoy every day, I want each and every one of you to think about that. We have homeless people living in the streets that are veterans. There is no way that should happen. No way in this country. And again, you think about the liberties and the freedoms that we have, what we enjoy. And we see homeless veterans living under bridges, behind schools, under railroad trusses. No, it doesn't make any sense. And I am committed with my administration, with every dollar that we can do to help this cause. We will write our budget. We will include things for the homeless veterans. We will not look at the price tag of things anymore. That's what's wrong with this country. And we are a brother's keeper, by the way. And my grandmother used to always say, you need references to go to heaven. And everything we do here is temporary. But when that final judgment time comes, we better remember what we've done for our brother and sister. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's nice to see lots of familiar faces this morning. That means that my progress and work in Newark is beneficial because I'm meeting a lot of new folks that are important folks in this room. I am very pleased to be here today to participate in this summit to end veterans' homelessness by the end of this year. Veterans' homelessness can be solved, particularly here in Delaware. We must focus our efforts and resources on this commitment, I am proud to join this effort. For the past 2.5 decades, I have been working, actually I should say volunteering, with many organizations at the state and county levels, as well as organizations in the greater Newark area, to assist those in my community who are homeless, as well as our working poor residents. I firmly believe this effort begins and ends at the grassroots level. All organizations who can offer to end veterans' homelessness must be discovered and included in the effort. In Delaware, we have a very manageable number of veterans who need a home. We are not dealing with a huge number of individuals. In my mind, there is no reason why we should not be able to find a home for approximately 84 veterans in our communities in this state. In the greater Newark area, I believe there is a perception that we do not have much homelessness. That is further from the truth. We may be a university with rich students and many upper level income residents, but we are not defined by that. Surprising to many, we do have many individuals and families that are homeless. Excuse me, I lost my spot. And many that need assistance during certain times in their lives. I have spent several years getting to know many of the homeless individuals in Newark. They simply want a place to live and they want a job. Yes, they may need medical assistance. Yes, they may have less than a stellar background, but I encourage you to reach out in your community as leaders and as citizens to get to know these folks, spend time talking to them, educate the youth in your community about our homeless neighbors. You will find that most of them have much to share and offer to us. And I will leave you with this. I have been participating in the Point in Time and Code Purple activities for a number of years now, actively. And on one Point in Time evening, I met a young man who was in the lobby of the Galleria on Main Street in Newark. And I walked up to him and he had too much to drink, obviously, but he proceeded to tell me that he was the mayor of the homeless on Main Street. And I said, well, that's so fascinating. I'm the mayor of Newark. And at that moment, I determined I was going to help that man find a home and a job and medical help. And he has improved. I must say that he is sober and has a job and is looking for a permanent home. So I encourage all the mayors in the state of Delaware to go find the mayor of your community that is homeless, because no doubt they all have a leader, just like we are, and they all have the mayor of the homeless in their city. So I encourage you to do that, because for me that was the first step in getting to know all of the other homeless individuals that live, walk, and spend time on Main Street in Newark, Delaware. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Dan Levine. I'm a member of Student Council at Slasianum School. This past spring, Slasianum held its third annual fundraiser, Salsthon. Salsthon is a 3-month fundraising campaign, all capped off with an overnight dance. In the first year, we raised over $70,000 for childhood cancer. Last year, we raised over $100,000 for the same cause. This year, we shifted our attention to fighting veteran homelessness in Delaware and raised over $150,000. Our beneficiary, the Delaware Center for Homeless Veterans, DCHV sees hundreds of struggling veterans come through their doors each year and does amazing work to house them, feed them, and set them on the path to success. Here to tell you more about our experience with combating this national travesty is the President of Student Council, Joey Bader. to thank you all for having Dan and I today. We are so grateful to be able to speak to you about our fundraising campaign, Southland. The experience was truly eye-opening for the entire Salesian community. Meeting the vets at DCHB and getting to know their stories really helped motivate us to do all we could for them. These are the defenders of our nation, living on our streets, so we knew we had to do our part to help end this injustice. These men and women showed such thanks for what Salesianum could do for them, and it made me proud to be part of such a worthy cause. As Dan and I move on to college, we know that the success of Southland is at good hands back at Sally's and will continue for many years to come. One thing I will never forget is watching the veterans stand at half court during halftime of one of our basketball games and tears come to their eyes as they received a standing ovation from the crowd. That is what service is about. It is about the feelings of those being served, not about doing something just because it makes you feel good. So thank you all for having us today, and thank you for your service to our community and to our beautiful country as a whole. Thank you.
We want to be as concrete as we possibly can in the strategies that we talk about today. So what we're going to do after today is we're going to take all the information that we talked about and all the ideas that each of you brought to the table to create a plan. We're going to reconvene in another month, and we're going to ask people to sign up to participate moving forward. And then we're going to start a 100-day challenge on July 1st. We're going to use the time between now and July 1st to get all our ducks in a row, to line up the resources that we need, to understand where there are gaps, if any, and work so that on July 1st, we can move forward very quickly in housing our veterans.
Yes, I want to thank everyone for showing up. Absolutely, we all believe that this is a very important event, and want to just talk a little bit about the programs that's offered at the VA and what we're doing to support and help veterans get out of homelessness. So again, I run a program, or I supervise a program called the homeless program. We have about 5 different subsets of programs under the homeless umbrella. The one that we have is our outreach, which goes out to shelters and work with veterans on the streets to get them into emergency housing or the contract housing that we have available in Wilmington and throughout the state of Delaware. The next is our GPD program, which is called a Grant Per Diem program, and that's for more of our transitional housing. We actually have 2 in the state of Delaware and 1 in New Jersey. I don't know if anybody's here from Home of the Braves down in Milford, but Home of the Braves is one of our Grant Per Diem programs that offers 15 beds. And then we have Connections up here, and I know we have some Connections folks here. Thank you. But we have 15 beds here in Connections, and I think there's 10 more beds in Dover for our GPD programs. And then our HUD-VASH program, which is throughout the state of Delaware, and then we have 3 southern counties in New Jersey. But our HUD-VASH programs, we have in the state of Delaware up to about 136 vouchers that we can offer veterans. We currently have probably 120 that have vouchers right now. I know that in Dover they're doing the boot camp, and I think we committed 15 vouchers to that purpose, and I know we're going to be committing more up here in Newcastle for housing veterans. We also offer substance abuse treatment in the community. We have a social worker who goes out and meets with veterans in the community, either at contract places, emergency housing, or also we provide groups in the areas. We also provide employment services. It's a newer program that started with the homeless program. It's called the Community Employment Coordinator. Dave Honecker is running that program. That program is more really designed because we recognize in our program that employment, I think someone mentioned that in one of the speakers up here, that employment is a necessary thing to prevent people from going back to homelessness. And Dave's job is to go out and meet with employers. Do we have employers here at all in the audience at all? Well, Dave's job is to go out and market to some of these employers, kind of talk up the veterans and see if we can make connections. And he comes back and puts that on a share drive for us. So anyone that's coming in looking for employment, we have access to that share drive, and then we can go and kind of communicate with some of the employers and get veterans jobs. And that's been successful so far. So I also want to talk a little bit about chronic homelessness. The definition that we go by in the VA is that, and most of you might have heard this, but someone who's chronically homeless would need to be homeless for a year, a complete year, or have at least 4 different episodes in 3 years. That's one of the criteria we use to get into the program. And of course, we take folks in that actually have been recently homeless, but we try to look for other services because we really try to focus on the most needy out there.
So next, I'm going to ask Rachel Beatty to come up. She is the Director of Community Planning and Engagement with the Homeless Planning Council, and this is still in our setting the stage. So Rachel's going to talk a bit about the numbers and talk a little bit about definitions. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So as Phyllis was saying earlier, today we really want to come up with some concrete strategies for how we're going to end veterans homelessness in Newcastle County. But before we do that, it's really, really important to make sure that we're all thinking and talking and strategizing towards the same goal. And part of what that means is we need to all be on the same page about what we mean when we talk about homelessness, what we mean when we talk about veterans, and what it will look like and how we will know that we've achieved our goal. For the purposes of the Veterans Challenges, communities across the country and at the state level, Delaware is utilizing the definition of literally homeless, HUD's definition of literally homeless, when we're thinking about who are we targeting to get into housing, when we house a veteran, does that count towards our goal? These efforts are targeting people who are sleeping on the streets or in other places not meant for human habitation. So that could be places like in campgrounds, in tents in the woods, in cars, abandoned buildings, or other places like that. Veterans who are experiencing homelessness and are living in shelters. So that could be emergency shelters or transitional housing, as well as hotels or motels that are being paid for with a voucher public subsidy. And I know here in Delaware we have a strong state voucher program for hotels and motels for people who need temporary accommodations, so it includes those folks as well. And it also this also would apply to people who, veterans specifically, who are exiting hospitals or other institutions, who were in that institution for a brief period of time, 90 days or less, and were literally homeless prior to entering that institution. So this is getting kind of into the details, into the weeds a little bit. And the last is this definition also includes people who are fleeing domestic violence, and are either sleeping on the streets or other places not meant for human habitation, or in shelters or transitional housing programs as well. So when we're talking about homeless veterans, we're talking about veterans who are living and sleeping in these conditions. For the purposes of the challenge, we expand the definition of veteran a little bit. Oftentimes when people think of veteran, depending on their position, they may think of veterans who are eligible for certain types of services or programs through the Veterans Administration. For the purposes of the Veterans Challenges, a veteran is anyone who has been a member of the U.S. Armed Forces, including the National Guard, for any length of time. So this definition is broader. It includes veterans who may not be eligible for services through the VA, either due to discharge status or length of time served. So we want to make sure that anyone who has served in any branch of our armed forces for any period of time is part of this challenge and is targeted for assistance. So one of the things that communities do, and part of what's important when setting concrete strategies and goals, is that we have a target. What is it that we're looking to achieve? What will we consider to be a success? So in communities throughout the country who are participating in this challenge, they often set what is called a takedown target.
That takedown target is a number of veterans that the community is planning to, dedicating to, has as their target to get into permanent housing by the end of 2015. So I want to talk a little bit about how that is calculated and talk to you about the takedown target for Newcastle County. The target is an estimate. The most important thing is that we're housing as many of the veterans as we possibly can in the community. But this is how we set targets and make sure that we're achieving goals. So in the 2015 point in time count, which was this past January, let me back up for a second. The point in time count is a one-night snapshot of people who are experiencing homelessness in our community. Every year this count takes place in January, and it happens statewide in Delaware. And it really just gives us an estimate of how many people are experiencing homelessness in our community on any given night, and what are some of their characteristics. In the 2015 point in time count, 49 veterans were counted as experiencing homelessness in Newcastle County, which is about 50% of all of the veterans that were counted throughout the state of Delaware. The total for Delaware was 102 veterans experiencing homelessness. So the Veterans Administration has developed what many communities are using is a formula to develop a takedown target. And part of that is using that point in time count number of how many veterans were homeless in January, in the beginning of the year. And they call that an annualization multiplier formula. So you'll see down in the formula the 2.72. That is what we use as a multiplier to help us estimate how many new people will be becoming, how many new veterans are we estimating will have a housing crisis, lose their housing, and become literally homeless throughout the year. So we take our point in time number of 49 for Newcastle County, multiply it by that, and then subtract the 49, which is what we started with, to see how many new veterans will become homeless throughout the year. And the number that we get for Newcastle County is 84. If we add that back into our point in time count that was done in the beginning of January, we're looking at a total of 133 estimated veterans will experience homelessness in Newcastle County throughout the entire year of 2015. We know that it's not January of 2015 right now, and we don't have 12 months left to achieve our goals here in Newcastle County. We also know that it is very likely that a certain number of the veterans that were counted in the point in time count in January have been assisted, have either self-resolved their homelessness and found access to housing, have maybe moved in with family or friends, or have been assisted by the many programs that are administered that help veterans get into housing. So for that reason, for those reasons, and seeing as we have about 6.5 months left in 2015, the Newcastle County Working Group decided to set a takedown target of 84 for the number of veterans that we intend to, that are experiencing literal homelessness, that we will house by the end of 2015. Can I ask, since I mentioned the Newcastle County Working Group that really worked really hard to get this to get this event together, to get all of you here, and to make all of this happen. Those of you who are involved in the working group, can you raise your hand or stand up and be recognized? Thank you very much for all of your hard work towards making this happen. So the Newcastle County takedown target was set as a result of looking at this data and information by the working group, and the takedown target for Newcastle County is 84 veterans. So what does it mean to actually end homelessness for these veterans? Jane Vincent actually talked about this a little bit in the beginning. So what we're looking for and what many communities are using is a definition called functional zero, which means that homelessness among veterans is very rare and the experience of that homelessness is very brief. So if a veteran does lose their housing and become homeless, we're able to connect them to permanent housing quickly. So reaching functional zero means that very few veterans will be experiencing homelessness in Newcastle County, and we can measure that in the next 2016 point in time count in January of 2016. And if there are a few, I mean we're talking a few, veterans experiencing homelessness, we know who they are. The housing resources, the permanent housing resources exist to be able to meet their housing needs. They are being actively and quickly connected to those housing resources, which makes their experience of homelessness very brief. One of the reasons that we talk about functional zero instead of getting to a zero is because we know that the affordable housing market, unfortunately, is very tight. We know that people have challenges with income and employment. So we know that through time, it is possible that a veteran will lose their housing and experience homelessness again. So functional zero is about making sure that when that happens, we know what to do, we have a strategy, and we have a system in place for getting that veteran housed as quickly as possible. So now I'm going to hand it back over to Phyllis, and she's going to talk more about what we need to do to move forward.
For being here today. My school, Salesianum, is here somewhere. I graduated too many years ago. Graduation is on raising that kind of money, $150,000, I understand. But I am a veteran. I'm lucky enough to have a house. And when I returned to office in 2012, I saw a great difference in the county than it was 8 years earlier. We had a drastic difference. We had tent cities everywhere. The homeless situation in our incorporated area in the county has drastically spread. Almost a year ago, without hesitation, I signed onto the challenge to end veterans homeless, and I have to give Sophia Hansen credit for that, for bringing that forward. This summit was developed so we could all work together, and it's great to see that we're working together, Jane and everybody, to put an end so that great men and women who serve this country can get off the street onto decent, affordable homes. So we've instituted policies to address the homeless situation for veterans. The county lists veterans as a preferred preferential program classification in the Section 8 program. Additionally, our, I think it's VASH coordinator, Lori Grady, works daily on outreach and educate landlords and veterans on housing programs. While we are making great strides, we can't tackle this issue alone. Your presence here today, and you too, shows that you two are committed to this national issue. I'd like to thank you for being here, and I wholeheartedly support this production in cooperative effort. Thank you all.